I to ask you to write a list of the world's wealthiest people, of billionaires, you'll probably write names like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, maybe Warren Buffett, Donald Trump. Of course, he might be a president now. Maybe even Richard Branson would crack that list. But if I had to say name Africa's 5 wealthiest people, most of us would be stumped. And that's exactly what inspired Chris Bishop, managing editor of Forbes Africa, to write a compilation of Africa's billionaires. And that's simply what the book is titled. And it is filled with inspiring and I think sometimes truly unbelievable stories of the triumph of human spirit. The stories you can tell, my friend. I would imagine what hasn't even made it into the book is worth another edition.
It is, in fact, yes.
That's a very different kind of release. But I have to ask, my first question is how you go about actually measuring the wealth of these people. How does Forbes go about it?
Well, it's quite a process. What you have to do, it's mainly on listed assets, what equity they own on the markets. Secondly, it's on property. We get the guys to declare their houses. We get the guys to declare their planes and cars. Thirdly, it's also net worth. So we also put that off against their debt. So what we do, we gather the information here in Africa, then we send it off to the Forbes Wealth Unit in San Francisco. And then they go through it, then they send it back to us. They disqualify it. They're a bit like the tax people. They disqualify it if they don't like it. And then we send it back, and then they ask for more information. It goes back and forth, and eventually they'll come up with a valuation, and it's like stamped then. No one can dispute it once they've done it, but it's quite a process. It takes a long time.
You know, I have to ask this question, is there someone that should be on the list that isn't on the list because they didn't want to be accountable for everything they own?
No, there's a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people are quite reluctant. It's amazing, actually. Some of the billionaires are very open, and they're very incredibly open, actually. They'll show you everything they've got. Some of the people, they're not interested. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of concern about, one, tax, 2, being above the radar, 3,
ill-gotten gains,
begging letters and those sort of things. People want to avoid that sort of thing. So a lot of people who should be on the list who aren't, but most of the ones who are, I mean, they've been through the process, so they're all absolutely solid.
And do you reckon there is quite a lot of wealth off the books in terms of the people that you have engaged with?
Well, funny enough, actually, when I sat down with Aliko Dangote at the Nigeria Stock Exchange all those years ago, first thing he said, oh, you guys got me down for 23 billion, but there's a lot more I have that you don't know about. And there's a lot more that's coming.
Under the mattress.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've all got cars and properties and wealth. Sometimes they, and this is Abdul Samad Rabiu, we'll talk about it in a second, but basically they've all got these little assets tucked away, so it's never quite, you can never quite say.
Let's start our journey in Nigeria. I think the whole continent reveres them for the entrepreneurship. In fact, Nigeria reveres itself for its entrepreneurship. Let's start with, okay, I think Aliko Dangote is a name that everyone talks about, but we've picked up another one on the radar that's actually studied with Mick Jagger.
Oh, yeah, Pascal Dorsey, yeah. Incredible guy, very old, very gentlemanly, very serious. There he is there. He's really been through the mill. What he did, he created a bank called Diamond Bank in Nigeria on the simple idea that the people where he grew up in the east of the country, they often used to travel to Lagos to go and buy stuff from traders, that sort of thing, and they had to carry a lot of cash with them those days. A lot of them used to get knocked on the head on the way there and robbed. So he thought, isn't there a way in which you can transfer money between banks? Long, long before everyone else was doing it. And he set up this bank and did exactly that. But he's an incredible guy. I mean, he was at the London School of Economics in the 1960s. And I said to him, I said, do you ever know Mick Jagger? And he went, yes, he was in my class. We knew him.
I lent him money once.
Yeah. And he said, no. And he said to me, he said, so what do you think of him? He goes, no, we as Africans, we didn't understand him. I said, why? And he goes, well, where we came from in Africa, if you played music for a living, then you were like somebody not worth bothering about.
Boy, has that changed.
Exactly.
I'd love to know the net worth of Nigerian superstars at the moment. They really are a hotbed now. When we talk about Nigeria specifically, but maybe it's transferable to a lot of African situations, the politics weighing in on the economic frontier, how much has that affected Nigeria's wealth, the fact that they've got this political wall?
Well, that's it. A lot of people don't want, not like here, you can work for the government, you can be a teacher, you can be a civil servant in this country, but as far as in Nigeria, those jobs are very, very limited, so nobody wants to work for anybody, and they're entrepreneurs, they're out there. Dangote thinks they're the stormtroopers of entrepreneurism in Africa. Thousands of them across the continent, in this country, Tanzania, Kenya, out there working, making money. And one of Dangote's favourite stories is that he went on business to Brazil, needs to buy a razor, so he goes out to the shop on the corner, and who should be running it? A Nigerian. He said, you see, we're everywhere. We're out there.
But it holds true. It certainly holds true here in South Africa as well. And we look at another Nigerian, Abdul Samad Rabiu. It might have seemed on the surface that he was gifted everything, but then, of course, had everything stripped away when his father was sent to prison. Very interesting story there as well.
Yeah, and the same as Dangote, he came up through cement and commodities, but this guy is the one, he phoned us up one day and he said, I'm very angry with you guys. You've got me down at 600 million. I'm a billionaire twice over. And we said, really? Well, prove it. So he opened up his books. We got our correspondent in Nigeria to get stuck in there, and he sent us records of all of his stuff. It's incredible. He even owns the one and only and the penthouse here in Cape Town. He owns about $60 million worth of properties in London. He owns millions of dollars properties in Johannesburg and Cape Town. He owns planes, and there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, all the values of the planes. He owns cars. Incredible. So we went through all this stuff, and we get to the point where we're talking about net worth. We said, who do you owe? And he goes, what do you mean, who do I owe? People owe me, I don't owe anybody. Right, okay. So then we put all the stuff, we sent it to the States. It was about 1.8 billion, and they only came back with 1.2 billion. So he was not happy. He said,
you owe him 800 now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think let's try to squeeze in one more, and I think by virtue of the fact that this was Forbes Person of the Year back in 2015, a gent from Tanzania. Tanzania's richest man, in fact.
Or youngest billionaire on the continent. He's still only 41. I mean, I remember I met him. He was signing up in Johannesburg for a $100 million deal because the banks in Tanzania couldn't handle the credit for the kind of expansion he wanted.
Couldn't float it, yeah.
And someone said to me, there's a billionaire in the room, and it took me 10 minutes to work out who it was, because this guy, he's very humble, he's very decent, he's like your young brother's best mate, you know, going around shaking hands with him. That's the guy. And I said to him, oh, we'll do a piece on you, etc. And this guy, he took his family business, which was, his family were in extreme poverty 2 generations ago. He came back and he turned an import-export business into a manufacturing behemoth in Tanzania. They employ 200,000 Tanzanians. Wow. It's massive. They employ more than the government. And he's increased his wealth now to 1.3 billion, and he's only 41 years old.
Invest in the people and you will reap the rewards. What an unbelievable journey. I think I could probably sit with you for a few hours, but I should probably read the book. I think that's going to be a good one, Chris.
Thank you very much.
The timing of this is just amazing, and I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of Africans out there, myself included, just dying to sink our teeth into African stories of how people have turned their life around and made billions using the resources of this continent.